And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Monday, February 11th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the co-host of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. With me is my son, Joe Hagmann, and together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of completely unbiased, completely uncensored news, information, and analysis. And folks, this is information that you really need to know in these perilous times. Now, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us at our home base on the internet at homelandsecurityus.com. And we're also simulcast through Christians United Broadcasting Network. The feed there is Homeland Security US, the numeral 1.tk. Okay, so there's an alternative listening source. That's Homeland Security US, the number 1.tk. Now, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. We've got a lot of information to get into. I want to thank you for your belief and trust in us as we walk through this almost literal minefield of current events together. Joe, welcome to tonight's program.
Glad to be here. It's been a big news day.
Indeed it has, and we're going to lead off with this.
Yeah, the Pope made an announcement today, and here's an audio clip of what that was.
CNN breaking news.
Welcome back to Early Start. We have major breaking news to tell you about. Pope Benedict XVI is resigning, and we are just getting in a statement that he made to his cardinals this morning at the Vatican. It says, after having repeatedly examined my conscience before God, I have come to the certainty that my strengths, due to an advanced age, are no longer suited to an adequate exercise of the Petrine ministry. His last day will be February 28th, and there have been reports of his fatigue and possible declining health. This is over the past year. He is 85 years old. He will be 86 in April. The last pope to resign was in 1415. That was 600 years ago.
There is such a long time ago, obviously, and so many questions right now. I believe we have someone on the phone, Raymond Arroyo, who is with the Eternal Word television network covering faith and religion in this country right now. Mr. Arroyo, can you tell us what you think the significance of this announcement is? It really comes as a shock to us this morning.
Oh, well, look, it's shocking to me, and I not only have covered this Pope his entire pontificate, but when he was at the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, the previous office he held as Cardinal Ratzinger. In fact, I had the only English interview conducted with this Pope at length shortly before his election. And it's curious as I watch this unfold, because at that time, Cardinal Ratzinger repeatedly wanted to retire in 1990, in 93, again in 96, up until 1999. And he declined each time. He stopped himself and didn't retire because of the example of the previous Pope. He told me in an interview. So to watch this is really, I have to say, I'm taken aback by it, both as a journalist and personally, and knowing that background, and also knowing his vision of wanting to reform the church. And
there you have it. The Pope has resigned, and I don't think that was the right clip because it did not have in there what he said when he resigned.
Well, I'll pull that up. But all right. In the meantime, I want to.
The Pope has resigned, and it's going to take effect February 28th and of this year, end of this month. And something interesting happened at the Vatican this evening. I'll post a link in the chat room here. Lightning strikes Vatican. hours after Pope's shock resignation. The lightning touched the roof of St. Peter Basilia, one of the holiest Catholic churches, hours after Benedict XVI's shocking announcement. And there's a picture. You can also go to drudgereport.com right now and find that picture. And this is the first popes to quit. The first pope to quit in 600 years.
Almost 600 years. I think 2 years within that time period. But folks, let me tell you something about Pope Benedict XVI. Not too many people know this. It was April 29th, 2009. Pope Benedict XVI did something rather striking, but went largely unnoticed. He stopped off in Aquila, Italy. He visited the tomb of an obscure medieval pope named Saint Celestine V, who lived from 1215 to 1296 A.D. After saying a brief prayer, he left his pallium, the symbol of his own episcopal authority as Bishop of Rome, on top of Celestine's tomb. Now, 15 months later, on July 4th, 2010, Pope Benedict went out of his way once again, this time to visit and pray in the Cathedral of Sulmona near Rome before the relics of the same saint, Celestine V. Very few people noticed this at the time. Now, only now, we might be gaining a little better understanding of exactly what his actions meant. And his actions were probably more than just pious acts. More likely, they were profound and symbolic gestures of a very personal nature, which conveyed a message that a pope can hardly deliver any other way. Now, in 1294, the man, Father Pietro Angelo, known by all of his devout and holy priests, was elected pope somewhat against his will shortly before his 80th birthday. And Ratzinger, by the way, was 78 when he was elected pope in 2005. Just 5 months later, after issuing a formal decree allowing popes to resign or abdicate, like other rulers, Pope Celestine V exercised that right. And now Pope Benedict XVI has chosen to follow in his footsteps of this model. That was back on April 29th, 2009, and again on July 4th, 2010. What is going on here? And the only thing I can say, and after reading the book Petrus Romanus, looking at the lightning, if indeed that's an authenticated picture, and I've got no reason to doubt that it's not, in understanding the predictions, or not predictions, but prophecy of St. Malachi. And by the way, folks, just so you understand, this prophecy of St. Malachi was summoned to Rome by Pope Innocent II in 1139, at which time he underwent, or he experienced, visions, if you will, in the form of, well, he actually wrote them down in the form of Latin phrases, and they were out and about for a while, but in 1590 they were rediscovered in the Vatican archives. You might know the Vatican archives if you watched Angels and Demons, for example. So we know the authenticity of these St. Malachi prophecies, at least since 1590, when they were rediscovered in the Vatican archives. That prophecy states that the last pope, Petrus Romanus, or Peter the Roman, will be the last pope, the black pope, and that's not a reference to his skin color necessarily.
No, what his prediction was, this was the last thing he said of the prophecies of the predictions of the Pope. The last one, Peter the Roman. This final Pope will likely be Satan taking the form of a man named Peter, who will gain worldwide allegiance and adoration. He will be the final Antichrist, which prophecy students have long foretold. If it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived. The 112th prophecy states, in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Petrus Romanus, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed by the dreadful judge, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. Or it's other interpretations say the terrible judge will judge his people.
You know, you can go on the internet and you can look at the final 10 or the last 10 popes from Pius X back in 1903, for example, in 1914. And they all have these particular monikers. For example, Pius X, the Pope of the Burning Fire. For example, he showed a burning passion for spiritual renewal in the church, and you can go up to the Flower of Flowers, which is a reference to Paul VI from 1963 to 1968, where his coat of arms depicts three flowers, if you will. Corresponding to Malachi's prophecy, the coat of arms included iris blossoms, three of them. And on the half moon, John Paul I, who served for 33 days, it's an important number, 33 days. And many think he was murdered. He was the 109th Pope, born on the half moon and dying on the basically half moon or soon after the eclipse of the moon.
He was buried.
Buried, I'm sorry, you're right.
I remember.
Yeah, but here is, I suppose here's the thing. As Joe and I were talking before the program, you know, there was a lot of silent time in the studio before the program. Silent time represented not wasted time, but time in thoughts and solitude and reflection. Because we see right now, we see a lot of people not getting it. We see a lot of people who are mocking, calling these conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. There was an article just today from the UK. Pope's resignation sparks conspiracy theories. And it says Pope Benedict XVI's shocking resignation has set tongues waging as some Italians questions why he has become the first pope in nearly 600 years to resign. And it goes on to say that his resignation in Latin during a meeting of Vatican cardinals on Monday morning, saying that he's no longer had the strength to fulfill his duties of office. The news apparently came as a surprise to even the Pope's close aides. The last time there was a papal resignation was 1415 when Pope Gregory the 12th stepped down. And it's the Telegraph's chief reporter Gordon Radner said that the unprecedented move had led some people to question why he made the decision. Italians are great conspiracy theorists, so they're all looking for other reasons why he may have quit, he said. I think the most popular reason that people are coming up with was what they just think perhaps he is much more ill than we have been told. But they're setting up it's a conspiracy theory. You know what I mean? Because they know people are going to turn to their Bibles, people are going to turn to doctrine,
right.
People are going, so they're trying to make it out like, well, this is something that's not that important.
And this is not something, for example, this is not something to be taken lightly. And the silence in the studio before the program. And even before that, there was discussion about Tom Horn when he was on. He briefly mentioned during his time with us, we got kind of sidetracked into a number of other areas, but he was invited on, January 11th of this year, and the pre-interview with Tom Horn circled around or revolved around the fact that 2012, 2013, according to his book Petrus Romanus, which was he authored with Chris Putnam, the bottom line there was the resignation of Benedict XVI would occur, or his death, but the resignation it appeared more likely because of ill health would occur in a very short period of time. And he said that, and he said, look, everything is lining up. And I have a copy of Petrus Romanus on my desk, and I've gone through it today again. And what's coming, folks, what's coming, I think, it should not be taken lightly. Now, one ground rule for tonight, and seriously, it should be for the entire program. We are not going to tolerate any type of anti-Catholic bashing or Catholic bashing. We're not going to tolerate any religious bashing whatsoever. I just happened to see a note on a response to a show we did where we censor free speech in the chat room. We don't censor anything in the chat room except obnoxious, abhorrent, and unacceptable behavior.
Right. And further on what you're saying is, we look at it like our government. And we see this a lot with the way we label other countries. We associate the people of those countries with their governments.
You're talking about
I'm not saying that.
Right.
Yeah. Now, as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, there are good Christians in there.
Absolutely.
Just like in any denomination of church, there are good and bad. But the Vatican is a system that is a corrupt system, like the government of the U.S.
Well, right. That you've got good and bad in there.
That's as far as I'll go with that.
Yeah. And so tonight is not, or any night, is not the time to bash religious beliefs, people who believe in certain doctrines above others, because, in the end, I mean, this is not to stifle intellectual discourse. This is just to keep things civil and to understand that there are doctrinal differences among Christians. Let that be, because we have bigger fish to fry, bigger people to fight, bigger enemies to fight, bigger threats to deal with.
Yeah. We got a lot of other news besides the Pope today. One being...
Well, before we move off on the Pope, I just have to say this, because this is... I lived through... Well, obviously I was an adult when the Pope... The one Pope lasted for 33 days.
I remember the last time when this Pope was sworn in, I think it was 2005?
2005.
We were on the road. We were driving in New York somewhere.
Yeah, we were always driving.
And we listened to who the announcement of the new Pope was on the radio.
Right.
And that's, I think, the only time I remember paying attention to that.
Well, look, please, for the sake of the program, for the sake of discussion, intellectual discourse, for the sake of humanity, and for the sake of people who have specific beliefs, whether you're Catholic, we welcome you. If you're a Protestant, we welcome you. If you're a Jew, we welcome you. Anyone who believes in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we welcome you. And set your doctrinal differences at the door. Let's look at the bigger threat and the bigger picture here. And that's what we have to do. But I just want to close out my commentary about this. Oh, and by the way, Tom Horn will be on Thursday to talk about what we can expect now.
Yeah.
And please understand this, okay? We are going to keep that discussion as best we can to the topic at hand. But here's my closing statement. If you're listening to this broadcast and you're a Christian, I don't know how you can possibly look at world events today and not know that the season has changed and the birth pangs are getting stronger and that something is coming. And it's time to get right with God. And if you don't hit your knees tonight before you go to bed, and I don't care if you're listening to this live or if you're listening to this via archive or if you're listening to this overseas or it's in the morning, if you don't hit your knees tonight and ask God for forgiveness and repentance and ask for spiritual discernment and guidance, I pray for your soul, because this is what we need to do and never before. And you know something? I have to say this. I was stunned. I appeared on Israel National Radio, I don't know, 4:30, 5 o'clock. It was early this morning, for about an hour before this announcement, before I even saw this announcement. And when I got off the radio in my office, I just listened to the announcement. I got to tell you, everything has changed. This is one of the most significant events I can think of. One of the most solemn events.
If you believe in the Malachi prophecy.
Well, okay, let's set that aside for a moment.
We know the way that the world is going. We know that the times we're in. We see the increase in natural disasters. We see the increase of earthquakes. We see the increase of wars and rumors of wars. All the things that are spoken about that will come at the end times. So I'm not saying we're not in the end times.
Right.
What we need is to look at the Bible for our answer, to see if we can find this in the Bible in some way, in some parable, because we don't have anything other than what has been produced to us through a record that was released 400 years after it was written from the Vatican, correct?
Correct, but that would still make that document from 1590 at the very least to the present day accurate.
Well, what I'm saying is, we've talked about these prophecies before. We read through them. We read through the different popes, the different prophecies that he made that looked very accurate.
And they were
concerning different popes. But before the show, I asked you, are people in positions of power trying to bring it about to look like the end of the world is imminent, to the point where it makes us act irrationally different or in a way or manner we would not normally act as Christians?
And that's a very good question or a very good statement, but when you look at the prophecy of the popes, once again written in 1139 and verifiable in terms of content since the year 1590, even if we say, okay, everything before 1590 is questionable, only because we cannot guarantee the chain of custody. If we look at it from that point of view, then what do we have left? Well, we've got Pope's number 220. Well, I'm sorry. We've got Pope's number 229 or 230, I should say, from Urban VII, who was elected as Pope in 1590. So Pope number 230 to the present Pope, which is 267. So we've got 37 perfect, and I mean perfect, prophecies that that could not have been falsified. So given that, even if we look at it again from 1590 to the current, the prophecies, say Malachi, would appear at least in the last 450 years, 430 years to be accurate. Now that said, that's the document of a man who was canonized as a saint. But so what? Because as you mentioned, we have other things taking place. But when you look at all of the things together, when you look at the papacy, the Vatican, when you look at the lightning strike today, when you look at the Pope yesterday with the Holocaust, taking a dove and releasing a dove, which is immediately attacked.
Yeah, that was on the 27th of January.
Oh, okay, the 27th of January.
This year, yeah.
Okay. But that
a few weeks ago.
That immediately attacked as a dove released from the balcony of the Vatican. This dove, the symbol of peace in commemoration of the Holocaust, was immediately attacked by other birds. The symbolism here, how can one not be astounded, or at least caused to stop and look and say, wait a minute, with everything that's going on? Even when I was doing radio with Kathleen Keating, and she talked about this. Father Malachi Martin, author of Windswept House, talked about this. You have some very, very strong people talking about this. Now it's here. Does this mean what we think it means? You know, given everything else, honestly, I've got to say.
Or is it a distraction? I mean,
well, see, isn't that funny? Because when people say things like that, it brings me to believe. Remember when the Republicans and everyone says, "Oh, the birth certificate, the eligibility is a distraction." Well,
okay.
No, it's not a distraction.
Let me rephrase it. Is this okay? Along this mindset, unsure about the validity of Malachi's prophecies, seeing what happened today, let's just think the prophecy of the popes are non-existent.
All right.
Okay? So we have no numbers of popes. We have no preconceived notion that there's a last pope or when the last pope will be. If that were the case and you saw what happened today, would you still have the same intense feeling you had when you heard what the news was?
Because when you have an event that the last time this happened was nearly 600 years ago, you balance that with the lesser-known actions of Pope Benedict in 2009 and again in 2010, visiting the tombs of the other pope and leaving items on the tombs of the other popes. You've got to realize that there is something at play here that is divine in nature. So, yeah, it would, but then when you add in everything else, and we can't dismiss out of hand the St. Malachi prophecies.
No, and we went into this a little bit before the show. In Matthew, in chapter 16, verse 3 and 4, it talks about the hypocrites asking for a sign in the sky. And verse 4 says, "A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall be no sign given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed." Well, I understand the difference between signs and
right,
and being performed by people on earth, being signs in the skies, but this would speak more to the season that we're in.
We're not going to know the time, but we're going to know the season. And to those who doubt the season, I just would ask them to look around. Because we've got, for the first time in 600 years, we've got a pope who is resigning. We've got rumors of a new pope by early March, which, if you look at the corresponding dates, they're interesting there.
Yeah, Obama set to visit Israel
at the time of Passover. Now you've got Ariel Sharon, by the way, showing signs of significant brain activity. And that happens, well, either immediately before death or sometimes before a recovery occurs. Remember, Ariel Sharon had a stroke and remains incapacitated. There are numerous other things that are in play here right now. You've got the globalist, and you've got to also look too at the position of the Vatican with respect to the globalist agenda, because the Vatican is a government unto itself. Sure, it's a religious organization, but it's a government as well. So you've got to take all of these things into account. And then when you read the documentation, and by the way, I'm not selling Pecus Romanus, but on Tom Horn's website, if you order the book, there's also a CD that comes, or a DVD that comes with it. You can, or CD, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the documentation used for that book is on that CD or DVD, and a lot of it is I mean, it's been authenticated by universities as genuine. So I guess what I'm saying is this. Of everything that we have seen, don't you feel, ladies and gentlemen, listeners of this program, don't you feel, and especially think back to the election, think back to last year, the spiritual blackness that everyone said they felt, and now carried through, and I just had a revisit of that pain and blackness that I felt. But see, what pains me even more, or equally as much, is I look around and there are people that are just not getting it. Not getting it at all. Don't know. Never heard of it. And they're just going about their own business. And to me, of all the people, of all the times, this is the most important time ever. And once again, let me just say this, and I know you're probably getting tired of me saying it, but everyone listening to this program, you were born for this time. That's my view anyway. You were born for this time, and you've got a job to do. And whether that might be just convincing one person of the season, or two, or handling family matters, or being the pillar of strength for your family as events take place, you've got a job to do. There's a reason why you're here, and there's a reason why you're listening to this program. And that's really what's important to me, because as you always say, Joe, I mean, what's really important is the eternal salvation of our souls, and indeed it is. Mm-hmm. But we can't just expect that we're going to be, saved without some effort on our part. And we have to do some things as well. So I would urge everyone to look at this as a very historic, very significant historic moment in time, a checkpoint in time. Look, we don't know when the hour or the day is, but certainly we can look at other things as being checkpoints. And if you want a big checkpoint, short of a hand appearing in writing with an extended finger on the wall of your home, I don't know what bigger checkpoint today, or what bigger sign that you can get than this. That's my view, and I just have to say that, like I said, the important thing is, after this broadcast, during this broadcast, doesn't matter when, hit your knees and ask God for repent and ask God for forgiveness, and certainly get right, because I've got to tell you, I have a feeling that we are entering into a time period like no other. And it's solemn. It's beyond solemn. Mm-hmm. And I think that we really we need to understand. And we're going to need some time to really let this soak in, I think. Those people who are really looking for discernment, I think we're really going to need some time to let this soak in and really grasp the significance of this. Yeah. Because it's huge. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of other things that we need to talk about tonight. But please understand the significance of this.
Yep.
So,
and some of the other news we're going to be getting into tonight is in itself almost just as important. Obama preparing to move forward with new executive actions. These are internet executive actions he is looking to carry out. Report, executive order on cybersecurity coming after State of the Union address. State of the Union address is tomorrow. According to Bloomberg, President Obama plans to release an executive order on cybersecurity soon after the Senate. The State of the Union address. The State of the Union address is scheduled for Tuesday, February 12th. The administration, which has been drafting the order for at least 6 months, plans to set up voluntary cybersecurity standards for owners and operators of critical infrastructure such as water, treatment plants, electric utilities, and railway systems. But it is much deeper than that. Part of these actions in these new series of executive orders are aimed at working around this Congress.
By the way, they're very important.
Includes policies that could allow struggling homeowners to refinance their mortgage, provide new protections for gays and lesbians, make building more energy efficient, and toughen regulations for coal power plants. And that's just some. The moves underscore Obama's increasingly aggressive use of executive authority, including 23 administrative actions on gun violence last month and previous orders that delayed deportations of young immigrants and will lower student loan payments. The article goes on to say, part of these executive orders will be trying to slow climate change. Obama is considering action through the Environmental Protection Agency to issue new rules governing carbon emissions by existing power plants. According to 3 people familiar with the White House discussions, the move would face fierce corporate opposition, but it's among the top goals of environmentalists. The White House is also reviewing whether the president should use an executive order offering protections to gays and lesbians who work for the government in a contracting capacity. Obama decided against issuing such an order during the presidential campaign last year, disappointing many gay activists. Also, the cybersecurity that calls for stronger standards for critical private sector computer systems. This would apply to industries such as transportation that are regulated by executive branch agencies. It would also increase the amount of computer threat data that the government shares with companies. We can't wait for Congress to act.
This is leadership by executive fiat, otherwise known as tyranny. I have no other way of saying it. I don't care if this is George Bush. I don't care if this is wrong. I don't care who is in the White House. The hubris behind this, the intent behind this. Look, this order, this CISPA, if you will, this call for a new creation, for the creation of new standards on what critical private sectors companies should do to protect their computer systems from hackers is a direct, and I mean a direct assault into the private enterprise. This is fascism. This move underscores Obama's increasingly aggressive use of executive authority. This is what this is all about. Now it would be 23 administrative actions on gun violence last month. Now it's this. It's the internet. It's the intrusion.
Yeah, and there's more to this. Here's an excerpt from the Bloomberg article. The administration is preparing an order amid recent cyber attacks, including the security breach of a U.S. Federal Reserve website, intrusions at the New York Times and other newspapers attributed to Chinese hackers, and denial of service attacks that disrupted websites of U.S. banks. The order directs federal agencies to consider incorporating the cybersecurity standards into existing regulations, according to the officials. It directs the government to share more information about computer threats with the private sector and issue more security clearances, allowing industry representatives to receive classified information, the official said. Recent European actions on cybersecurity. Meanwhile, eWeek and the Verge.com reported that European plans to tougher its cybersecurity rules for their important infrastructure. Although the rules are a draft at this point, the European Commission proposals are coming at an interesting time, showing that international concern on cyber is now at an increased level.
See, folks, and we've gone through these, not the text of the executive order, but the previous drafts, which appear to be the foundation the infrastructure of the executive orders that are coming out. And this is the what we've been able to put together just based on our own research. This is the takeover, the control of the internet in a way that it's going to make people say, well, if it makes us safer while we're surfing, then it's a good thing. And that's, you're going to hear this in the coming days. If it protects us if it protects our banking information, and this is another one you're going to hear, if it protects our online medical records, this is a good thing. But the intent that's not stated directly, but is the collateral effect, is to throttle the internet and to redirect the security, or not redirect the security, but to the indirect intent here that's not talked about is to quell political dissension against Obama. See, that's always been the objective. And once again, George Bush was a part of this to a lesser extent. If you follow the history of the internet rules and regulations and attempts to take over the internet, you'll find that George Bush had his own internet czars, but they weren't called those. They were national security advisors on internet activity, and of course the groundwork was laid by George Bush. To a lesser extent, Bill Clinton. Don't forget that really the internet came of age during Clinton's administration, but he realized, just as talk radio is a threat to the liberal agenda, the internet is a threat to the progressive, communist, fascist agenda. This is what this is all about.
Yeah. I'm going to switch gears here into some interesting news. I don't know if you guys remember H.R. 645, called the National Emergency Centers Establishment Act. Well, it has reappeared under H.R. 390. It's called the National Emergency Centers Establishment Act. It's been introduced by Mr. Hastings of Florida to direct the Secretary of Homeland Security to establish national emergency centers on military installations. What this does is, for the purpose of these national emergency centers, shall be to use existing infrastructure, one, to provide temporary housing, medical, and humanitarian assistance to individuals and families dislocated due to an emergency or major disaster. Two, to provide centralized locations for the purpose of training and ensuring the coordination of federal, state, and local first responders. And to provide centralized locations to improve the coordination of preparedness, response, recovery of government, private, and nonprofit entities and faith-based organizations. Its designation of military installations as national emergency centers. So after 60 days, the date of this enactment of this act, the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, shall designate no fewer than 6 military installations as sites for the new Establishment National Emergency Centers Act. And they go in to talk about what these things should have inside them and where they should be located. Now, before you go on, because I can hear people, I can almost see their eyes going backwards and, saying, yeah, you know what, this has got a 3% chance of passing, or a 3% chance of getting out of the committee, and a 1% chance of passing. That's according to the government tracking, to GovTracker. So, but see, what people, this was introduced by Elsie Hastings, 10 pages long. You can find it on GovTrack. Just search the HR 390 or search the bill. But here's what people need to understand. There are various incarnations of this, and
that take parts of this, and there are in other bills, and they also exist in the executive actions and orders by Obama through the previous executive orders. So a lot of this is rehash. A lot of this is almost like an attempt to legalize or to put the imprimatur of Congress on previous executive orders by Obama, by Bush, and by Clinton. Understand that's why this is being brought up. There is a reason this is being brought up, and the reason has to do with the conditioning of the people and of the lawmakers as well to talk about FEMA regions 1, 3, 2, 5, 6, whatever, the establishment of national emergency centers, and the designation of military installations as national emergency centers.
Not only that, handed over to Janet Napolitano in the Department of Homeland Security.
We've already had, experienced that, but again, this is the attempt to legitimize this by Congress.
Yeah, and this is where they want them located. A, in close proximity to a transportation corridor. B, located in a state with a high level or threat of a disaster-related activity. C, located near a major metropolitan center. And
just as long as there's train tracks nearby, we're fine.
But the thing is, they already have these centers.
Of course they do. But once again, it's about the conditioning of people. It's about getting people to understand this is the normal. This is new normal. But see, okay, Joe, and Joe, well, both of us, we've talked about this, and this is one of the more difficult programs to prepare for because there's just so much, and it's so heavy, and the weight is great. I mean, it's just the weight in terms of spiritual weight and information overload, and oh my goodness! But here's the thing: as far as we're concerned, you're seeing things that used to take 5, 6, 7 months, or used to have months and even years in between these actions, now having weeks, months, sometimes even days between these actions. And this is part of it. This, along, as Joe mentioned, the cybersecurity executive action / executive order, whatever that might be tomorrow, the State of the Union tomorrow.
And what will be said during the State of the Union?
And I was listening to a program today, and I had to do some research. I just want to throw this out there for people. Just kind of keep this in the back of your mind because this will come up during our program tonight and in future programs. The inflation, how this government measures inflation has changed 3 times since 1982. Well, if you would take the 1982 standard and apply it to today, what would the inflation rate today be? Ladies and gentlemen, any idea what today's inflation rate would be today? I'll give you a second to talk amongst yourselves.
18%? 25%?
13.6%. Okay. But even at that rate, that's a very oppressive rate. That's an oppressive rate, and people are understanding that the money is just vanishing out of it's the buying power, the purchasing power is vanishing, and people talk about a universal economic collapse. It's coming, but yet talk to anybody at Best Buy or Costco or I don't know, the people who are buying big ticket items. They're not seeing it.
Yeah.
Wow. It's incredible.
I'm going to try and play this audio clip. When I downloaded it, it did not sound very loud. But
okay.
This is Joe Biden. We're counting on legitimate media for successful gun control effort. Now let's see how loud this is.
All right.
The case of the American people, which is an objective that we all have, and the President and I are going to continue to travel the country to do so that what we're proposing cannot be misrepresented by those who try to make the case. If if we were to eliminate the ownership of, quote, assault weapons as being drafted now, that, when I ran as a senator all those times, I supported assault weapons ban, the original Biden crime bills where it got passed. Well, when I ran for office, I was told a lot of money was spent saying I was taking away everybody's shotgun. And it was all about your shotgun. Well, that's a bunch of malarkey. I know that's a word you've never heard before, although it's now in the dictionary. But that's just simply not true. And to be very blunt with you, we're counting on all of you, the legitimate news media, to cover these.
There's two things important about this. Number one, the efforts to take the legitimacy away from the corporate media, number one, and number two, the comments about gun control. People have to understand the two things that are being said here.
Yeah, one, we need we're counting on legitimate media for a successful gun control effort. Now, what is legitimate media?
Well, it's anything. Well,
let's look at the Department of Homeland Security's lexicon. Alternative media is a form of domestic extremism.
Right.
So I think they're talking about the big six, the Fox, the MSNBC, the CBS, NBC, ABC, to push this. And this is the administration's call,
right,
to say, hey, Obama is ready to act on gun control, and you guys need to push this agenda as hard as you can. Biden also made the statement today that he's not running for Pope.
To even be that, I don't even have a word for that. To make a statement like that to me is not only disrespectful, but as far as I'm concerned, so out of touch and so demeaning to Christians, whether you're a Catholic or not. If you're a Christian, that's demeaning, and it's just ridiculous. This guy, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's wow.
Also, this today or yesterday, from the Telegraph, record-close asteroid may miss the Earth, but it could take out your phones.
I saw a very extended.
You may miss Earth.
No, I got to tell you this. This is about this asteroid, and I watched a video on this particular asteroid, how it was discovered. I mean, I know more about this asteroid than I really want to.
Okay, that's good because I've been trying to get your attention on this for a while.
Okay, but here's the thing, Joe. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, I mean, we have things flying out there all the time. And we have near misses that people don't even know about. Okay, now, this asteroid is half the size of a football field. And if it hit Earth, remember the Tunguska, I'm not sure, the Siberian event back in the early 20th century? Folks, do you remember that? In Siberia that took down I don't know, what was it, 8,000 miles, or not miles, a whole big area of trees and stuff in Siberia back, I think it was 1917 or thereabouts. People thought perhaps it might have been a Tesla event. Well, they're saying that if this asteroid did happen to strike Earth, it would be the equivalent of that particular event. Wherever it hit, people would have a very bad day. But they're saying that this could run into some of our satellites. And
I've seen different calculations on this. The NASA has changed the calculations as far as the proximity goes throughout the last few months. I even talked to Sandale about this. He recalculated the new numbers and said it was still going to be 14,000 miles, I think, away from Earth. Now, this article here says 17,000 miles, but it starts off by saying scientists say that they are sure
we got
no chance
1,000 miles out there.
No chance of a 150-foot wide space rocket hitting the planet, but there's a remote possibility it could collide with one or more of the 100 telecommunications and weather satellites in fixed orbits above the Earth.
Folks, do you realize how, and this is part of the movie or the video I saw, you realize how crowded it is out there around Earth with all these satellites, the geosynchronous orbit satellites? Holy cow!
Yeah.
Now if and the video did say this: if, for example, it hit one or more of the satellites, it would create one heck of a mess out there, a really big junkyard with people or with parts coming down to Earth that could hit buildings. It would be a magnificent light show at the very least, and at the very worst, you wouldn't want to be walking out there and all of a sudden get hit by a chunk of, soya's something,
And I just wanted to mention that today because we're not going to be talking about this asteroid. It will be passing in 4 days, and it should be interesting to see what happens. We're almost up against the break. This story definitely wanted to talk about.
By the way, so when this does pass, if our audio goes out, don't blame us. Blame that asteroid.
Yeah, or somebody else.
And let me. I forgot to tell you this, Joe, because I haven't seen you all weekend, but I got to tell you, I was talking to Rick Wiles. For those of you interested, we're looking into being on shortwave. And the possibility of us going on shortwave. And because of your help, because of the people who want to have supported us as a listener show, it's not cheap by any means. But going through the same channels as Mr. Wiles, hopefully. And we're looking at that as a possibility. So not only brick and mortar here in the States, but shortwave as well, all across the world. So I just want to mention that. I forgot to tell you that before the show, but I thought I'd mention that to you.
There's still the ongoing situation of the one ex-LAPD officer, Dorner. Police seeking Dorner have opened fire in a second case of mistaken identity. Now, this is crazy, and it's something we need to understand what is happening here. All right, first off, we had we're going to go to break shortly, but I'm going to lay this out, and we'll come back, hit this and more news, and then take your calls. But, okay, last week there was a mistaken shooting of newspaper deliverers, 2 women. There were 40, one was the daughter, one was the mother. And if you go, you can find a picture of their truck, and it's got riddled with bullet holes. Anyway, they were delivering papers in the Torrance area in L.A. on 5 a.m. Thursday, and police got a tip that there was a truck similar to that of what Dornan was supposedly driving, and the police went there and fired upon his vehicle, and the people did not die. When they stopped shooting, they quickly realized their mistake. The truck was not a Nissan Titan, but a Toyota Tacoma, and the car wasn't gray, it was blue. Dorner wasn't inside, instead a woman and her mother delivering copies of the newspaper. Now, again, we have another story. Police seeking Dorner opened fire in a second case of mistaken identity. David Perdue was on his way to sneak in some surfing before work Thursday morning when police flagged him down. They asked him who he was and where he was headed. Then they sent him on his way. Seconds later, a Torrance police cruiser slammed into the back of his pickup truck, and the officers started opening fire on the truck. His pickup, police later explained, matched the description of the one belonging to Dornan. The ex-cop has elevated authorities after allegedly killing 3 and wounding 2. But the pickups were also different makes and models. And this Perdue is a skinny white gentleman, looks nothing like Dorner. And what really strikes me about this is they stopped him and talked to him.
Right.
And as he drove away, shot at him.
Yeah, I don't quite understand to me, that is one of the most bizarre things. Just imagine being pulled over by a police officer and being cleared, basically, said, okay, fine, you can go, and then all of a sudden, the shots ring out and hit your vehicle. I don't get that. Now, that said, it's also possible, too, that somebody else arriving late to the party, late to the scene, could have been involved in the shooting. But regardless, there should be adequate radio contact what's going on here. I think you've got. I really believe.
I mean, in our firearms class we took recently, we learned a number of different operating procedures when handling weapons, and especially when engaging people. Now, cops and officers go through much more of this type of training.
Of course.
That is not standard operating procedure unless there is a perceived threat, unless you know your target. Obviously, they didn't know they didn't know their targets were ladies in the first case. They didn't know if they posed a danger. They didn't know if they had the weapon. They didn't even have the right car, the right color. But yet many cops unloaded many bullets. And thankfully the women are still alive. But what are they so scared of?
Well, obviously this man is targeting all LAPD.
But we have 3 alleged killings, 1 of an officer, 2 from his family.
Correct.
No evidence yet has been shown. Well, there has been 2 separate manifestos released. I'm not saying the guy's innocent or he deserves any credit.
No. I follow you on this. And one thing we have to talk about too, not to cut you off, although I did, and I apologize, I have to stop doing that. But one thing that we have to talk about is what's behind this. What's the motivation? The obvious motivation is vengeance, if you will. However, there is something a little bit different that mirrors it has some of the same qualities as some of the shootings that we have experienced here in the very recent, very recent. So that said, we have to look at this when we come back from the break. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what's really behind. There's other things, including the Kyle. There's Kyle shooting and others.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your #1 priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Folks, if you haven't already done so, you've got about 3 days left to take advantage of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, the sale by the Freeze Dry Guy on behalf of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 2 items. Chicken sale on chickens, not chickens, sale on canned chicken, and a sale on dried ice cream. And I got to tell you, man, I got to try this. But they're long range meal plannings that are in Mylar bags. They're great for on the run for your grab and go bag. Hagmann and Hagmann Report, they're on sale for listeners to our show. Just go to freezedryguy.com go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the link for Freeze Dry Guy, and when you go over there, you'll see the specials. Mention the Hagmann Report and get your discount. And also, while you're on the Hagmann, or while you're on HomelandSecurityUS.com, do one more thing for us. These people are just fabulous. Carl and Lori Granlund Firearms in British Columbia. Click on the link there on the right-hand side of HomelandSecurityUS.com and pay a visit to Granlund Firearms. There you'll find just everything you would need if you're a hunter up in British Columbia or even in the United States. Of course, you have to talk to them about how they ship things, but survival gear, hunting gear, things that you would never think. I mean, these people have so much in stock. They've got just a wide array of hunting rifles, hunting equipment, survival gear. Visit GranlundFirearms.com and check out their gun stock list, check out their photo gallery, check out their books. One of the books, of course, is Treed Beyond the River, 2nd edition, written by Carl Granlund himself. What a great book, entertaining, especially if you're a hunter, even if you're not, if you like adventures, the outdoors, grab that book and tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Oh, sorry, folks. Welcome back to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I had us on mute.
Oh, that's nice. I was wondering why we were talking to ourselves.
I apologize. Let me repeat what I said. We're going to be taking calls this hour as well as covering news.
News that is overshadowed by, of course, the papal, the Vatican announcement. But
yeah, 661-244-9839. If you want to join us on the phones, let me start over again. This is from the Washington Post. Obama. Job of debt reduction nearly done. President Obama will deliver a State of the Union address, but one thing you won't hear is his new ambitious plan to rein in the national debt. In recent weeks, White House has pressed the message that if policymakers can agree on a strategy for replacing across-the-board spending cuts set to hit next month, Obama will pretty much have achieved what he has called our ultimate goal of halting the rapid rise in government borrowing.
So we're okay now, right?
Oh, yeah, we're fine.
We're fine.
Yeah. Over the past few years, Democrats and Republicans have come together to cut our deficit over the next decade by more than $2.5 trillion. But we haven't seen any of that. And we see what? Secret loans from the Federal Reserve upwards of $14 trillion. We see money wasted in every department of our government. We see Obama spending more than all presidents before him combined. We see his Obamacare, if he legalizes the 11 million immigrants that he wants to, it could raise another $2 trillion on top of the $2 trillion more that Obamacare is going to cost over the next 10 years. I mean, this guy is really going to destroy the economy. And with this news comes news about China.
This is something, and I just want to interject here before you do this. This is something we really have to watch, what's going on with China, in both, not only just, I should say not only just with the economy, but militarily as well. But go ahead.
China eclipses U.S. as biggest trading nation. China surpassed the U.S. to become the world's largest trading nation last year, as measured by the sum of exports and imports of goods. Official figures from both countries show. U.S. exports and imports of goods last year totaled $3.82 trillion. The U.S. Commerce Department said last week. China's Customs Administration reported last month that the country's trade goods in 2002 amounted to $3.87 trillion. China's growing influence in global commerce threatened to disrupt regional trading blocs as it becomes the most important commercial partner for some countries. And it goes on to talk about U.S. leadership. When taking into account services, U.S. total trade accounted for $4.93 trillion in 2012. U.S. recorded a surplus in services of $195.3 billion last year, and a goods deficit of more than $700 billion. So we're in the red there. But according to China's figures released February 8th, China 2012 trade surplus measured in goods totaled $23.1 billion. And not to mention, we owe more money to China than anywhere else. They say I saw an article today about this also. The Fed's holding of U.S. government debt is now at an official all-time high. And I'm pulling up the article for the figures. A record $1,696,691,000,000, 200%, up 200%, 57% under Obama.
Here's my question. I want to know how anyone cannot see, or how anyone not see that the economy here is collapsing all around us. When people say that everything is fine and things are getting better in America,
recovery.
We're in the recovery.
Recovering from capitalism.
How? I mean, do you really believe that? If you want just to see the economic collapse, just look around you. By almost every economic and financial measure, our economy has been steadily declining for so many years that most Americans are so tied into the matrix. And that's what we're in, folks. We're in the matrix, because when we go back to talking about Mr. Dorner, we're going to talk about the matrix. But so many people are tied into the matrix that they can only understand that the propaganda that is endlessly being spoon-fed to them by, CBS, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, Fox, everything. And the economic collapse is just not going to be a single event. It's been happening. It's incrementally. It's taking place, happening right now. It's going to continue to happen. And there's going to be times when our decline will be punctuated by moments of great crises. But those will probably be the exception more than the rule, at least in the beginning. And a lot of people write about the economic collapse. You see it on blogs. You see it everywhere. They hype it up as some huge singular event that's going to take place. You're going to wake up one morning and the money's going to be gone. Okay, that'll happen. But but look what's going on around you right now. See, people don't quite get it. So when it does happen,
wars,
right?
Venezuela, Japan, China, Europe is threatening to join and follow suit. Russia just bought 570 metric tons of gold. Weighing 3 times more than the Statue of Liberty.
But which is amazing when you think about it. Now, what does Gerald Celente say? Currency wars, trade wars, currency wars.
Yeah, and when you look at the new
wars,
Pacific Partnership that is on Obama's agenda of things to accomplish early in his second term, will further add to the decline of U.S. imports and exports and our decline of our economy.
Well, I would urge everyone to just look over in Europe right now, because a lot of the financial gurus, whether it's Joe Celente, Max Kaiser, people who are saying that we're in trouble financially, Peter Schiff, are telling us to look at Europe and look at the situation there, because it's unraveling at a breakneck speed.
Their whole goal, their whole pushing of this agenda after learning through force, or trying to learn through force of a global takeover, that's not usually how it's going to work, or the best way to make a global transform into a one world order. So they're using incrementalism. And as this incrementalism has creeped to the point it has now, is there any room left for incrementalism when the crash comes?
See, and that's a great question, because there may not be. But let's take a couple of steps back here and ask, really, who controls the money? We have a completely unelected and absolutely unaccountable central bank of the world that controls our money, and they're immensely powerful. It's an international organization. Most people never heard of. Most people never heard of. I mean, these people secretly control the money supply of the entire world. It's a, you know what it's called? Folks, have you heard? Please tell me you've heard of this, and if not, please do some research on it. The Bank for International Settlements. It's a central bank of central banks, and it's located in Basel, Switzerland. It's got branches in Mexico City, actually, in Hong Kong, and it's essentially an unelected, unaccountable central bank of the world that has complete immunity from taxation and from national laws. And for whatever this is worth, if you want to go to Wikipedia, for crying out loud, well, even they say it's not accountable to any single national government. So it's a private cartel. And what do we do with cartels? We usually prosecute them, but there's no one to prosecute them, because the Bank for International Settlements was used to launder money for the Nazis, by the way, back in World War II. But those days are over. Today, the main purpose for the Bank of International Settlements is to guide and direct the centrally planned global finance system. 58, count them, 58 global central banks belong to the Bank for International Settlements. And they've got more power over the United States economy, or any other economy for that matter, than any politician does, or any government does. And by the way, every 2 months, the central bankers of the world, they gather in Switzerland for a global economic meeting. And during those meetings, various decisions are made that affect you and me. Yeah, you and me, us.
Zero Hedge had an article today. What are the G20 rules for taking down your currency?
And what are they? There are no rules, right?
Rules of engagement. Cities Stephen Angelander sets out some brief rules of engagement for G20 nations as competitive devaluation escalates. There are rumors that G2, G7, or G20 will make some comments on currency wars and competitive devaluations in response to Japan's perceived transgressions. Oddly enough, Japan has not actually implemented any policy yet. It is unclear whether G20 rules apply to what they say rather than what they do. Most likely some statement will emerge this week. It will possibly have a short-term effect on the yen, but it seems very likely that the modest shift in language and no shift in intended policies will enable Japan to do all that it intends to do, including weakening the yen. Nice. The parameters of acceptability on comments influencing the exchange rate are not well defined, but seem pretty broad. At the end of this note, we have a selection of comments that suggest it is okay to say, 1, my currency is expensive. 2, my currency's depreciation has done a lot of good. 3, our currency affects our exchange rates. 4, we really don't like the appreciation of our currency.
We really don't like the appreciation.
It is possible that the U.S. and the Eurozone will issue a joint statement on currency manipulation, but it is unlikely to be specific to Japan. It will cite a number of practices that Japan will deny represent its intentions, and JPY will keep falling. And it just goes on to state that there are countries that are intentionally deflating their currencies, and that they should be allowed to maintain and pursue weaker currencies openly as a policy tool. The reason that there is no real conventional monetary tool they have left, and if they are in true liquidity or deflation trap, adding more domestic liquidity and will not have much impact on real rates. The only way to get activity going may be to crowd in both exports and inflation via a weaker currency. It is the case both in Japan and Switzerland can make, and one not that the EM interventionist countries can plausibly argue applies to them. Something to keep your eye on there. Also, back to the cybersecurity legislation and executive order to take place after the State of the Union address. Panetta says if we have a cybersecurity Pearl Harbor, is possible.
So we same thing that Napolitano said. Folks, understand you've got to watch these code words. So when they say cybersecurity Pearl Harbor or like another Pearl Harbor, what does that remind you of? The talk before 9/11.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity, watch this.
Cybersecurity Intelligence and Protection Act, CISPA, will be reintroduced to the U.S. House next week following a spat of cyber espionage and hacking attacks. Civil liberty advocates have criticized the bill for violating privacy laws. House Intelligence Committee Chair Mike Rogers and Ranking Member Representative Dutch Rupertsberg will attempt to breathe new life into CISPA on Wednesday. The bill will be identical to the version of CISPA that passed the House last spring but was defeated by the Senate floor in August, mainly because the upper house was hammering out its own cybersecurity bill. They go on to say American businesses are under siege. We need to provide American companies with information they need to better protect their networks from dangerous cyber threats. It's time to stop admiring this problem and deal with it immediately.
And how to deal with it immediately is to put controls on the internet. And you see, it's not some outside threat. And this is one thing that was said by the Financial Insider. The threat's going to be from within.
Yeah, and General Napolitano warned in January that a cyber 9/11, which could cripple critical infrastructure like water, electricity, and gas, may happen imminently. We shouldn't wait until there is a 9/11 in the cyber world. There are things we can and should be done and doing right now that, if not prevented, would mitigate the extent of the damage, she warned before urging Congress to pass the cybersecurity legislation. During the first major policy speech on cybersecurity in October, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta took a similar rhetorical route, warning the United States faces the prospect of a cyber Pearl Harbor.
Well, look, once again, this is about conditioning. This is about control of the internet. This is about silencing radio shows like ours, like Rick Wiles, like from the Heartland, Greg Evenson, other shows. This is a huge method to silence. And you say, okay, well, how does this exactly work if we're talking about strengthening up the security? Well, there will be built into the measures, there will be statements that, look, you cannot, for example, have certain incendiary speech, or else, you could actually, you just can't have any incendiary speech, and it's going to be part and parcel to it, kind of like an add-on. We've seen this before with other bills, but that's going to be part of it. This, according to one of my sources, not with the DHS, but with another agency, who said that the lawmakers are actually in agreement with Obama on this. Go figure, okay? So, man, I'm telling you.
I want to play this quick clip here. This is Nancy Pelosi talking about the right to bear arms. This is quick.
But I think that you took one piece of it. We're talking about no further sales of assault weapons. What is the justification for an assault weapon? No further sales of those. No further sales of the increased capacity 30 the gun. We're talking about background checks, which is very popular even among gun owners and hunters. We avow the First Amendment. We stand with that and say that people have a right to have a gun to protect themselves in their homes, in their jobs, wherever, and that they, in their workplace, and that they, for recreation, for hunting and the rest. So we're not questioning their right to do that.
The question is...
I guess guns are under the First Amendment?
Yeah. In this case, they are. Freudian slip, perhaps. Because once they go after the Second Amendment, they'll come after the First. Now, consider the fact that her amendment or her bill has probably no chance of passage. So what's the big to-do over this? Why is everyone still looking at this? Because the votes aren't there, supposedly. Well, from my understanding, neither was Obamacare or the affordable health care, or there was an issue there with respect to that. So think of this. You have no law as we once knew it. Certainly they could pass this, they could ram it down our throats in one way, shape, or form, and it could come to pass. But watch what the states are doing instead, because you've got, as Joe mentioned earlier, you've got various states that are making their own oppressive gun laws pretty soon.
Yeah, California, now we got New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to play that because I found it humorous and to add a little humor to tonight's show.
Yeah, it is a heavy show, but folks, think about this. We were talking about Christopher Dorner, the alleged cop killer in California. Remember what we said last week. Remember what we talked about there will be a drone use on American soil.
Yeah.
Isn't this interesting?
This is speculation, and we said this last week, but the LAPD would not confirm nor deny if they were going to use a drone
to take him out, not for surveillance purposes, well, for surveillance purposes initially, but to take him out because he's such a danger to society. And certainly you would not want to risk the lives of police officers. Now, if you think about it very quickly in a glancing manner, there is some logic to that, isn't there? But more importantly, what you're going to have is the conditioning of the American populace to accept the use of drones in the homeland, in the country of America. This is the way to get American people to say, "Oh, another drone strike. Oh, that's okay." It's the new normal, because America now is the homeland, and America now is the battleground against terrorists like Christopher Dorner, and even more so, the people who speak out and are seditious, speak out in seditious fashion against the policies of this current administration. Don't forget, we're talking now with the backdrop. The backdrop of our conversation tonight is something that hasn't happened in 600 years, and that's the resignation of a pope.
And the significance of that we'll see play out in the days, weeks, months, and years to come.
So yeah, but everything we're talking about, please look at it. Look at the bigger picture. Don't be myopic. Don't be, look, there are sites out there that say, well, the Muslims are the ills, they're the ill of the world, and they're responsible for everything. That's pretty myopic. The infiltration of our government by Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, it does happen. It's pretty myopic. But these are all components.
Right, and they're compartmentalized. The real powers control the people that control the people that control those people, you know what I mean? And we know that through reading about history and different organizations that are now operating in the open.
These are all components of a larger agenda, and there are like I said, certain sites out there will focus on one thing, and that's fine. That's what they do. If they do that well, that's great. But please, folks, look at the larger picture. Take a few steps back. Just sit down for a moment and kind of take in what's around you, and use your discernment to see what's going on. But and it's funny because, by the way, people who have been critical of the DHS information of late about the cyber warriors, isn't it odd that the State of the Union, following that, that Obama is going to sign into order?
Not if he called you beforehand and told you.
Yeah, he was on I'm sure I'm on his speed dial. It's to me, is it further validation? I don't know, because I don't know.
It doesn't matter at this point.
It doesn't really matter, because the information's out there. Please learn from it. Please be aware of it. You don't have to believe it. Just be aware of it. Just keep it in the back of your mind.
And everything we're talking about tonight, all the news that's going on around in the world, whether it's the Pope or the Dorner, Earth events, we don't have to really worry about that. We can understand, we can know what's going on, we can pay some attention to that. But seeing all these things happening, as you said at the beginning of the show, if you're not seeking the Lord, and if you're not taking everything to prayer that you need or have questions on, if you're not reading His words, you are not doing and preparing properly. Because all this stuff is just really, appetizers from the main course.
But you've heard
the solution to the problem is very simple. No matter what events happen in the earth, no matter what way we fall or stand, or whatever happens in the world, there is one answer, and that is the Lord. And in Matthew, it talks about, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I think we're going to start to see Christians being persecuted for being Christians.
We're seeing that overseas now.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking about in America. I mean, it's been happening across the world for a long time.
Yep.
And, we've seen it come up in the West Point document. We've seen it come up. There's an article in Canada Free Press today.
Yep.
Talking about, let me pull it up here, the DSM-5, the new American Psychiatric Administration's classification guide of what is considered a mental illness, where they include Christianity as a mental illness.
Yeah.
They include, it says, finally, we have the political less intense hatred for Christianity, and this most definitely includes Obama. Despite having passed himself off as a Christian in the eyes of the grotesquely ignorant, it is clear that he is a functioning atheist. Many argue that he is a Muslim. My belief is that he holds a marked affinity for Muslims. He is far too narcissistic to design worshiping anything other than himself. It goes on to state that, you could, in the area of mental illness, given the administration's totalitarian bent, this could mean an era of atrocities galore. Have you ever suffered from anxiety, depression, anger issues? Have you ever been treated for any kind of addiction? Had trouble sleeping? One might suddenly discover that due to some psychological episode, perhaps in the distant past, their constitutional rights will be nullified. And that's what this AMA DSM-5, the new American Psychiatric Administration's pretty much lexicon on what is a mental illness.
That's our go-to book. And when you begin listing monotheistic religions in the DSM as being a psychological illness or impairment, folks, we have a huge problem here, because that's not like taking God out of society. That's actually turning a monotheistic God like the God of Christianity in Judaism into a psychic or mental problem, and that's what you said. So it's just an amazing, and I use that because I'm constantly amazed. How can people not only write this, but how can this actually sustain peer review, and how can people actually allow this to continue or to be activated, if you will, if that's the right word, or to be maintained? It's just not. It's not right. So in the course of look at how far we've gone in the course of 50 years.
Look how far we've gone in 6 months.
6 months, 5 months, 3 months. I don't know. And the other thing too, and I've been doing, like I said before, doing a lot of research on a couple of different things. The number of people who have been sanctioned, I believe sanctioned, at the hands of the Obama regime agenda. I mean, you talk about Chris Kyle, you talk about John Noveske, you talk about Keith Ratliff. Chris Kyle, of course, the author of American Sniper, he was among the dead, two dead at the shooting range. John Noveske, the owner of Noveske Rifle Works, vehicle run off the road. Isn't that interesting? Geez, 2 gun makers killed in 2 days, yet no real answers. Keith Ratliff, YouTube producer of FPS Russia. Various high-power firearms are demonstrated. He was found with a single gunshot wound in the head. Let's talk, let's be aware of these things. Do we think that these are accidents? Do we think that talking about this is conspiracy nonsense? I don't think so. I think that there's a pattern here, and we're seeing the sanctioning of people who have gone against the Obama regime agenda is being taken out. And, of course, more recently, isn't it funny that, not funny, but isn't it ironic, I suppose, that Philip Marshall, whose book I've got in my hand right now, The Big Bamboozle of the United States Intelligence Community's Big Bamboozle, if you will. It's a published book of about 150 pages about 9/11, 166 pages to be exact, about 9/11, where Philip Marshall reportedly shot his family and dog and killed himself. And yet this book has a lot of direct and indirect, well-cited information about 9/11 and about the various aspects of the war on terror. Another one of perhaps Obama's Deadpool.
Well, let's go to our phones. We got people on hold. We're going to take calls for the rest of this 24 minutes we got. And
sure.
We'll,
if we can be on, folks, if we can be on point, and by the way, we're fine. Thank you very much for asking. And if we can be on point, let's see if we can get through as many calls as possible.
Area code 509, you're up first. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, this is Marjorie from Spokane. There's been a lot of confusion, so trying to decide what's going on, why is all this stuff happening? And in light of this, I really believe that I'm just going to read this thing. It's God's words. I'm not going to change anything of His. This is my dearly beloved daughter, the Antichrist. First of all, on May 26th of last year, he said that the Holy Father, Pope Benedict XVI, would be made to flee because they were trying to oust him out of the Vatican. And he said that the next Pope, would be the false prophet. Then on June 1st, he said, my dearly beloved daughter, the Antichrist is preparing already his peace plan, which he will introduce soon after the wars become widespread in the Middle East. And when the pain and terrible anguish means there is no sign of hope, then he will appear suddenly and announce himself to the world as a man of peace, a bright jewel which will sparkle in the midst of darkness. As he emerges, he will be seen as one of the most charismatic political leaders of all time. His handsome, appealing, and caring personality will fool the majority of people. He will exude love and compassion and will be seen to be a Christian. In time, he will draw many followers who will grow in their numbers so that he becomes like me, the Messiah. He will be seen to promote unity among all nations, and he will be loved in almost every country in the world. Then he will be seen to have supernatural skills. Many will believe that he has been sent by my Father and that he is me, Jesus Christ, Savior of the world. They will pray to him, love him, give up their lives for him, and he will laugh and mock them when they cannot see him. This will be the biggest deception of all time, and the plan is to steal their souls to take you away from me. He and the false prophet, who will sit like a king in the seat of Peter, will secretly plot a one-world religion. This will appear to be a Christian-type religion which promotes love. It will, however, not promote love of one another, which comes from God. Instead, it will promote love and allegiance to the Antichrist and love of oneself. The abomination does not stop there, for when they have seduced God's children, the attack will begin. Suddenly all will be asked to accept the one world mark of allegiance, a united world, which all men will have to partake in. It will control your money, your access to food, and how you live. Rules, many of them will mean that you will become prisoners. The key to your cell, which keeps you under their control, will be the mark of the beast. 666 will be embedded in its number, hidden into a chip, which you will be forced to accept, just as you would any vaccination. Once embedded, it will poison not only your mind and soul, but your body, for it will cause a plague designed to wipe out much of the world's population. You must not accept the mark. Instead, I will instruct you what to do. Many will accept the mark because they will feel helpless. But he is giving us the seal of protection. It says, When you receive my seal of protection given to you by my eternal Father, you will not have to accept the mark. You will not be touched. Your home will not be seen, searched, or a target, for it will be rendered invisible in the eyes of Satan's army. You will need to keep food hidden, which will last a few years. You will need to grow your own crops, store your own water, and keep all holy objects around you. My remnant church will grow and spread out, and you will be given shelter if it is needed. Much planning is needed now. Those who laugh at what you do or say, surely Jesus would not ask you to do this. Does he not supply all his followers at their time of need? Even one loaf and one fish can be multiplied. So it does not matter if you only have some food, for I will protect you, and you will be safe. Pray hard for those souls who will be unable to avoid the mark. Those innocent souls will be saved who are in a state of grace at the time of being forced to accept the chip. The rest of you must plan to protect your family and your allegiance to the Holy Eucharist and the Mass. When the Antichrist devours all religions, the only weapons which he will be powerless against is the Holy Mass and the transubstantiation of the bread and wine into my body and blood in the Holy Eucharist. My Masses must continue. Those of you who know this must gather in numbers now and start the preparations. The sooner you prepare, the more graces you will be given to grow your ranks around the world. The rock will become laden with a new building, which they say will be my new holy temple. But this is untrue. But when the persecution ends, my remnant church and my chosen people will have the temple rebuilt, and my new Jerusalem will come down from heaven. She will descend in glory. The trumpets will be heard in heaven and on earth at the same time. And then I will come. You, my daughter, will herald my arrival, and many will fall on the ground and weep with relief, love, and joy and ecstasy. For at last, the moment they have been waiting for, the skies will light up, the thunder will peal, and the choirs of angels will sing in sweet unison as all of God's children will welcome the true Messiah. I, Jesus Christ, will come to judge, and the heavens and the earth will become one. The new glorious splendor, the renewed earth will emerge, and the new paradise will embrace all those names who are in the book of the living, who will unite as one. And while the end of the old earth, soiled with the stain of sin, will have come to an end, the new era is only beginning. This is what you must strive for. This is what you are entitled to as part of your natural inheritance. Only focus on the saving of all souls. This is why you must ignore the obstacles presented to you, the persecution, the pain, the horror of evil by the hands of others. All that matters is the saving of souls. Your Savior, Jesus Christ.
What exactly are you reading from him?
This is from Maria Divine Mercy, thewarningsecondcoming.com. I have told you about these messages before. He has given her over 750 in the last 2 years. She's unknown. She doesn't make a profit off this or anything. You download all of these messages that the Lord has given, and every single one of them are his words. He is giving these. He said, this is the book that was closed in the book of Daniel. If you read in the book of Daniel, it is the book that was closed at that time for the end, until the end times, which we are in now. And the next pope, he warned this back in May, asked us to pray that he would be able to stay, it would be held off as long as possible, because he said as soon as he was gone, that then the false prophet would be in the Holy See. And then the church would no longer be reigned from the church. The keys to the kingdom would no longer be in the church. He will be reigned by. It will be reigned in heaven, and not the church. And it's so important that Catholics know this, especially because I'm afraid that Catholics who follow just the church and not God will fall for this man of sin. I am really afraid that they will. And God says that they would. I have even talked to some of them, and they say, well, you have to be true to the Catholic Church, but no, it's true to God.
Well, one thing I'd just like to point out.
And he will bring, what's that?
I said one thing I'd like to point out, and I'm not talking, I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to the person who received these visions, but that's something I've always been very skeptical of. People saying that they have heard that Jesus has spoken, this is what they've spoken. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that let me just ask you, how do you
and I'm being serious with this question because I'd like to know this. How do we know, or how would the person receiving this know that it's really from God?
Well, the first time that she was an agnostic, and I'm going to put it this way. Everyone has been raised in their own way, and this is the way that God put it, too. I wish I could find that. I should have had that here. But everyone's been raised in their own way, and God faults no one. She was an agnostic. She was a fallen away Catholic. She was in the church, not the church, but the chapel at the hospital, because her friend was in the hospital. She was with another friend also, and she was praying for her friend who was very sick. And I know you're going to probably take offense to this because she saw Mother Mary, and so did the other woman. There's an interview with her, one interview. They got hold of her on Skype, not to see, but to just talk to her, and asked her, well, how did you know that you didn't just see this? And she goes, they said, did anyone else see this? And she goes, yes, my friend was with me, and she saw it also. That way I knew I wasn't crazy. And she wanted to believe that she said, when I knew what this meant, I didn't want this. She goes, I'm a very busy business person. I have 3 children. I have a full life. But the Lord said, He uses the weak ones, He uses ones who are not set with a certain mindset, because I'm telling you, almost everyone has a certain mindset. I, myself, was raised in a Baptist church. I've always loved God, always knew that I belonged to Him. When I was 11, I went to the Catholic church with my neighbor, and I went in there, and I knew I was home. I went home to my mother, and I said, Mom, I want to become Catholic. I became Catholic at that time, and then in 93, my sister, who was a Protestant, she said, she goes, well, you should go see my...
Are you there? Did we lose you?
She dropped off. I was just going to ask where she got it from, and let people know, because when it comes to we didn't cut you. If you're listening, and I know you're listening, we did not cut you off. I don't know what happened. It's showing up as a call was dropped, so I think it was on there. And
well, just use discernment, and if you want to check it out, you can go back in the archive and grab the URL or the website name that where this appears. Go ahead and check it out. And look, I'm sure the Lord uses normal people like you and me and whoever for certain things. So,
right, the way He uses everybody for certain things. Right, even even Obama, even the popes, even the things that they're doing could be in coordination with His judgment.
Bayside apparitions too, and look at the Medjugorje, what happened in Medjugorje. So
yeah,
and who knows?
And like I say, I said I don't know, something about visions or people saying that Jesus spoke to them, and for each individual case deserves discernment if you're going to get into it, and whatever and everything that she read, I would check out further. We would just turn to the Bible. Everything's already in the Bible.
Everything's in the Bible. That's correct.
We cannot.
This is good. To hear what she's got to say.
Well, just let me go back to where it says in the Bible about all in the end times, all the deception, all the lies, all the false prophets, all the hypocrites. And I'm not saying, of course. We have to be aware of that. It says, therefore, all things, whosoever would ye that men should do to you, do ye so to them, for this is the law of the prophets. Enter in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. And there is a way to heaven. There will be which will go in that way. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there will be that finding. Beware of false prophet.
What scares me, look, without going to the Bible, what scares the living daylights out of me is the fact that you got to know that Satan knows the Scripture better than any human being. Well, or as much as the smartest human being of Scripture, but you know that Satan knows the Scripture and will use it and twist it and turn it against us.
Yeah. Thanks, March, for your call.
Thank you very much. God bless you, and you know.
Area code 305. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi. You there?
Hello there. What's on your mind?
Well, I was thinking about the Pope stepping down on the 28th of February, and how there's an interesting series of events that go on right then. And on July 24th, 2008, Barack Obama gave a speech at the Victory Column at the Tiergarten in Berlin, which is the site of the Reichstag. Okay, and the Pope grew up in that era. He was 5 years old in 1933 when the Reichstag fire happened on the eve of February 27th, 1933. He was 5 years old. So the 80th anniversary of the Reichstag fire happens this February 27th, the eve of the Pope stepping down from...
okay, keep going with this, because there are some interesting, very interesting parallel dates.
So tonight, the lightning, just after the announcement of the Pope stepping down, lightning strikes the St. Peter's Basilica, and in Hebrew, Barak means lightning. Okay?
Sure.
So the angel that is the column, where Barack gave his speech in 2008, the angel, the fourth ring on the angel was put there by Hitler, and the angel is really Victoria, the Roman goddess of victory. And that's also the site where euthanasia was put into effect by the Third Reich, by Hitler and everything. I'm just saying that there's, what are we, in the Fourth Reich now? I mean, the similarities here of the police state that's rising in this country, the fact that he picked the Nazi symbolic spot of Victory Column at the Tiergarten to give his speech in 2008, and that this Pope was a youngster under Hitler's regime, and he saw the horrors that happened during World War II. And now...
a lot of people don't know that, by the way. A lot of people don't know Ratzinger's history with the Nazis, or experience. I shouldn't say history, but experiences under the Nazis. And you make a very good point about that.
So just think about it. He's resigning on the day following the 80th anniversary of the Reichstag fire, and lightning strikes St. Peter's.
Yeah,
the name Barak means lightning. I'm just saying that this is like really kind of very creepy here. Oh, and let me just throw another little thing in. It's really a sidestep that isn't with this, but it's very weird nevertheless. The storm that just hit the exact spot up there in Connecticut and dumped 40 inches of snow on that part of Connecticut where Sandy Hook happened. They named it Nemo, and if you reverse it, it's Omen. Just saying.
and look, I want to say this. I don't know if you sent me that. Did you send me that email?
I don't know. Maybe. I send emails.
Okay, look.
I might have.
Okay, and caller, and I want to thank you very much for your call, because you made some very, very interesting points. We're going to cut you loose.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
There you go. Thanks.
You made some really interesting points. God bless you. And folks, I just want to mention this, okay? Once again, I cannot. If you want to further your education in matters, I'm going to say of the Illuminists, the Illuminati, if you want to go down that road, and of mind control, okay, if you want to get an education, facts, accurate historical facts, a view from space. It airs on AM 640 Toronto. You might get tired of hearing me saying this, Gary Bell. And send him an email to let him know you heard about his program on the Hagmann Report. But here's the deal, okay? The National Weather Service, we never named storms, snowstorms, ever. And all of a sudden now the Weather Channel is naming these storms. This one is Nemo. And the caller is right. If you write that word Nemo on a piece of paper, hold it up to a mirror, and it spells omen. Now you might think, okay, you're really grasping at straws, and who really cares? I mean, it's just bizarre. It's stupid. It doesn't mean anything. But here's the thing. Aleister Crowley, a guy that was the worst of the worst, born in 1875, died on Christmas, December 1st, 1947. The guy that was the establisher of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, for example, very much into astrology, very much into the occult, and a huge, actually a descendant, if you will, of several of people in power today, but you've got to understand the mirror image, the reverse mirror image of things is like Omen in Nemo. Occultists believe that mirror images are portals to the spiritual world. Now, understand this. It doesn't matter if you believe it. It doesn't matter if I believe it. It doesn't matter if Joe believes it. It doesn't matter if my wonderful Don believes it. But see, here's the thing. If they believe it and they operate off of that particular tangent or that particular, it matters if they believe it. So occultists believe that mirror images are portals to the spiritual world, which really kind of, the last caller did kind of mention, Nemo, backwards as Omen, and with all the things we're seeing right now. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we have historical proof through people like Aleister Crowley, people that have been responsible, high people in the United Nations, the established United Nations, and as Joe's talked about and researched, done so much research on, and Angie too, God bless you, Angie, research on Lucius Trust, which is actually Lucifer Trust initially. This is all occult stuff. But see, where it meets with the real world is in the things like the United Nations, the global governance objectives, and all of this. So, you can say, and the last caller, and even the caller before that, talking about visions and what have you, look, I look at this as anecdotal evidence. It's not direct evidence. Direct evidence is the Bible. That's direct evidence. That's the best evidence. All the other stuff is just anecdotal evidence. That doesn't mean anything. Look, I don't know. But we'd be remiss not to mention it. At least not, just to mention it. But one more thing, and before we go to break, Joe, I just want to dominate this before we go to break. 2 minutes here, a minute and a half. Give me 90 seconds.
All right, you got a bunch of callers.
All right, I know. Give me 90 seconds before break.
All right. Wake me up in 10. No, go ahead.
If you look at, and here's something I really didn't consider. Everyone talked about the Mayan calendar in 2012 and how, things stopped and all this. Well, what if you were looking at it all wrong? See, it was a spiritual transformation for 2012. 2012 had the maximum number of Friday the 13th you could have in any given year. Now, I know, okay, people say, well, that's pretty superstitious. Well, again, Friday the 13th are celebrated by occultists, and occultists really are run like the United Nations and other NGOs and are prevalent in our government. believe it or not. They are. And other things happened during the year 2012, which won't happen again. Some planetary stuff, and you had numerous shootings. In fact, more shootings than we had ever, which could suggest what? It could suggest some sort of disconnect with mind control, or connection with mind control, and disconnect from the holiness of the Spirit. And I'm getting into this just to say this too. The movies that have come out, Skyfall, the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, the Dark Knight Rises, all of this really black stuff. Have you noticed there's black stuff coming out? I mean, this really black, ugly stuff. And the Hollywood Grammys last night, did you see that? I didn't, but I heard about it.
Didn't even check out a news headline on it.
But see, Hollywood, the gatekeeper of the Illuminus of Hollywood is Clive Davis. Of course, Whitney Houston passed away, sort of kind of under his, I don't want to say under his watch, but he was her manager, if you will, the year before. But there are so many things that are things out there, that little pieces of the puzzle, that if we look at individually and just spend a little time looking at it and seeing where they might or might not fit in, folks, it kind of takes you on a weird rabbit trail, numerous rabbit trails. But I guess I said all that to say this: don't confine don't limit yourself in terms of what you look at. Look at the bigger picture and admit that there is some really nasty stuff out there. That said, we're going to go to break, and when we come back, more calls and more information and more Joe right after this.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com, or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 3, the third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this, the 11th day of February 2013. I just want to say to everyone that we're so glad that you're listening. We know again that there is a gathering in a diner in the Midwest. I was asked not to give the name only because of they're closed, actually. I mean, they're closed at this time. Just they're gathered. It's a family gathering, and they listen to the Hagmann Report. I want to say hello to you folks out there, and want to bring you. I want to remind you too. Thursday, and folks, if you don't mind, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Go ahead and go there at your convenience and spread the link or spread the article itself, actually, about Tom Horn being on our show on Thursday. Among your Facebook friends, your social networking friends, I've got to tell you something. It's going to be probably the biggest blowout in history of radio, because Tom Horn is the guy that wrote Petrus Romanus, and he is in such demand. Now, we had to reschedule Nathan Leal. We're in the process of doing that, that is, because of Tom Horn's schedule. I mean, Tom Horn has been everyone from, I think, Fox to Al Jazeera, which I'm just kidding about that, but every media outlet in the country wants to talk to Tom Horn, and he's agreed to do our show in a rather short period of time, that being Thursday. So I can't wait for that. So, folks, that's going to be 9 to 12, 9 to midnight Eastern time, because of the scheduling with Steve Coyle, who will be on as well. Before we go to the phones, just real quick here, think about this, folks. This is a little left-handed information. Remember Judge Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts. Remember his Obamacare decision, his wide-eyed decision about that, making it legal, if you will, and being the spokesman of the Supreme Court. There's been a lot of people over the last couple of months, or last year actually, saying, what was that all about? Well, consider this. Do you think he was blackmailed? Do you think Chief Justice John Roberts was blackmailed to support the Affordable Health Care Act? And if so...
That's no excuse.
Well, of course not. But what would he be blackmailed for? You know, maybe some dalliances or what? Well, one writer has, by the name of, I believe, Katie Baker, has said this. Justice Roberts, back in 2000, and his wife Jane adopted two children. Initially, it was apparent that the adoptions were from a Latin American country, but over time, it's become apparent that the adopted children were not Latin American, but were Irish. Why this matters will become evident here in a second. In 2005, the New York Times began investigating Roberts' life as a matter of his nomination to the court by George Bush. The Times was shortly accused of trying to unseal adoption papers and intending to violate the anonymity of the adoption process. However, there is more to this story, as there always is. And Drudge had an article about this back in 2005. But very quickly, the New York Times was looking into the adoption records of the Supreme Court of John Roberts. And the Times had a staff reporter, Glenn Justice, hot on the case to investigate the status of the adoption records of the two young children. Then at the time, Josie, age 5, and Jack, age 4, Judge Roberts and his wife Jane, they adopted the children while each were infants. But both children were adopted from Latin America. There's that sentence again. Anyway, the bottom line is the accusation or the supposition is there were fraudulent adoption papers. Now, does that matter? Well, it would, to the extent that it could affect Judge Roberts in terms of his station his position at the Supreme Court. Now, I was told this, and lastly, this is the other thing I'm going to say about these types of things. Whether you're Panetta, whether you're Petraeus, whether you're whoever, Brennan, in order to get that position, to be in that position, see, people have things on you. It doesn't matter what it is. It may be it's your bathhouse experience in Chicago, Barry, or it could be your too much tongue in the kiss, George with the prince, or it could, who knows what it could be. But at that level, the powers that be have something on you, and I didn't mean to be gross about that, and I apologize. But you get my drift. Everyone is compromised, and that goes to the fact that the United States is a captured operation, as I said on Pete Santelli's show here not too long ago, and as I say on the show all the time, we are a captured operation. The people in power are compromised. That said, Joe, I'm going to kick it over to you. Do what you want.
We are going to go back to the phone lines. Area code 231. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 231. You are live.
That's me. I'm sorry. I'm 231.
You are 231. It's me to 231. You smiling?
I'm Carol. Yeah, I'm smiling. I'm Carol. I live in Beulah. I've been listening to you for quite a while, first-time caller, but very impressed with you bringing God back into the news, because when I was brought up, they used to close a lot of, when things were seriously wrong with our country, they used to close down news programs with a prayer in the 50s. The things were bad.
I remember
President Kennedy died. When President Kennedy died, and when we were praying about the missile crisis, they asked the people to pray.
They did.
It didn't have your press.
The local stations especially had very big on that, and it was geographically heavy too. But yes, you're right. You're very, very, very good. Yes. So we're kind of like a throwback, aren't we?
Yes, we are. 58 years old and still going strong. I hope to see Jesus. Live long enough to see Jesus. But I'm very worried about the attitudes of the people that are semi-awake. Like that. They might be awake as far as knowing Mr. President Obama is not doing everything according to Hoyle, and he may have some nefarious things going on, but they're not about to do anything about it. You see my point?
Oh, absolutely.
They know I see that a lot. I hear that a lot. Or they'll believe that he's really wrong and evil at doing this thing, but that's just one thing they'll say. They don't realize the disconnect, that this is part of a bigger picture. And it's really, we're quite at the end game right now. I believe in
Carol,
3 or 4 months.
Carol, what do you think is the most important news item you've heard over the last, month or so? What has shaken you up the most over the last month?
When Sandy Hook happened, and they immediately did the drum beat. I've heard drum beats before about guns and when it used to be when drive-by shooting, that was the thing to try to get you out of it, getting the guns, and then that didn't work because people realized it was just individual criminals doing that, and they were gang related. And then when Sandy Hook happened, I knew this was going to be bad. Because whether we know all the facts or not about it, and if these children were really hurt, because I assumed they couldn't pull that part off just to get the guns, but that means that they went so far as to kill innocent children to get the guns. And we'll never know who did it.
You know what, Carol? I have to say that I think second only to today's announcement, Sandy Hook is only second I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. The Pope's. I think that was in the right order. Second only to today's announcement was Sandy Hook. And I wanted to just mention this. Whether you watched or heard of the Grammys, you had the Sandy Hook choir there, 26 children and one handler. Seems some exploitation taking place.
Oh, for sure. And that's what I offended. These poor children were exposed to Beyonce.
Yes.
She's just a wicked person.
Well,
and Hollywood has done a lot of things that isn't right with it.
You know, you're absolutely right, and I have to say too, the Sandy Hook Choir. What bothered me the most is when I heard the song that they sang, and these are 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, I believe. Mm-hmm. At least they appeared that way, singing a song that was certainly sexual in nature, but exploited for a political purpose at the Grammys, and then, of course, the Super Bowl performance as well. You know, and how Sandy Hook has played into the psyche of the American public. Wow.
True.
So
True. That was the tipping point of this. Is like that just put them in their end game. You know, I listened to Steve Quayle and I listened to the Liberty Man and John Moore, and I listened to you.
John Moore.
And even sometimes Coast to Coast. I didn't get to hear you the last time you were on, but I'm a Catholic, but I believe in Jesus Christ is the only way, and the Pope isn't the way. He is just a person, kind of like a CEO of something, but really he's wrong because he's supposed to. Catholicism has got to get back to Jesus. That's what our Blessed Virgin Mother said. If you don't put my son first, my son has to be first. If you don't put him first, I can't help you. Amen. Because you must put my son first. She says that. Amen. And I believe he's first. I don't go to Mass. I just pray because they butchered the Mass. It used to be like Malachi Martin said. It was a holy thing. It was a thing to remember the body, and that he physically died a violent death to shed his blood for us. And there's no salvation without that shedding of his blood. That's all the Mass is about.
Carol, I couldn't have said it better than you said it. Is there anything else on your mind?
I did want to tell you, I pray for you, that's all. I pray for you, and I missed hearing your one little Catholic man from New Jersey says he's all alone. Tell him to keep the faith. There's other Catholics who think highly of him for calling in, and we're worried about him. I wanted to know if he made through that storm.
I think you're. Oh, okay. Yes, will do. We'll pass that along, Carol. I want to say God bless you. Thank you.
And my brother did write an article I wanted you to read real quick. My brother is Raymond Stock. He writes for the Middle East Forum.
Yes.
Heard of that? It's my brother, absolutely. Raymond Stock. And he just came up with another article, so you might want to look it up. He lived in Egypt for 20 years. He knows how they operate over there. He also speaks their language fluent, and he does not like Obama. He's the one that gets part of it right.
Okay, Middle East Forum. The Middle East Forum is a very good website. In fact, I will after the program, I'll look up your brother's article, and thank you for alerting me to that. I do go there quite frequently. I haven't been there though in a week or two, so I'll look it up. Indeed, want to thank you for that.
Okay, it was on Egypt's nuclear plan. They have a power. They've had their own program since the 60s. And that's never being discussed in mainstream news, you know.
Right.
So there's a lot of people in this chessboard over there in the Middle East. And that's why Morsi met with Iran, was for those who had that benefit of it. They want their technology passed on to Egypt. Morsi, he sees himself as the guy. It's been a long time coming. They've been planning this stuff in Egypt for a long time, since Sadat.
Well, I believe that. Okay, I'm gonna definitely have to check that out.
I wish you a good night, and your son's a very nice sounding young man on the phone, and I like to hear his perspectives about Jesus. Tell him I pray for him too.
Very good. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Joe, you're a nice sounding young man.
What a great call.
Absolutely. And Middle East Forum is a good website to go to get the perspective, the real perspective on what's going on over in the Middle East.
All right, we're going to move on here. Let's see, area code 256. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, this is Sharon. I'm a first-time caller and actually first-time listening live, but I've been listening to archives for several months. Hey, guys, really appreciate what you do in your ministry.
Thank you.
I had just a quick kind of connection. Don't know if it's really valid or not, but this is just the way my brain works. Benedict's announcement regarding his resignation on the heels of what I read or heard, I think just in the past few days, about his having gained Israeli approval to have a seat at King David's tomb in Israel, and the timing of that also within the same week or so time frame in early February with Ahmadinejad speaking rather, I don't know, kind of joyously and really forcefully about his looking forward to praying in Jerusalem. And I just really felt strongly that that was revealing something about a shift behind the scenes. And so I just wanted to make the comment that, it seemed to me when I heard about the announcement today, my husband, grabbed it online and then told me when we were together earlier today, my first thought went to, well, maybe he's being pushed out, maybe he's being forced out, or maybe he's opting out because he's a smart enough guy. And with his background, with the Reichstag background and history, maybe he just wants out. But it seemed to me what rang in my spirit was, well, he did his job. His job is done, and the job was to get this appointment, to get this approval for the seat in Israel. That's the kind of thing I'd love to throw at Steve Quayle and Tom Horn and let them bandy it about. But you guys spend a lot of time with those fine gentlemen and are here, in the trenches. So I just kind of wanted to send that to you and see if you had any thoughts along those lines. But it just seemed to me, as I said, I felt like he was like he had accomplished what he was going to do. That was the pinnacle per se.
Yeah. Now, I understand what you're saying, but my question back to you would be, if you've done that, if you've accomplished what you set out to do, wouldn't it be more likely that you would want to stay to see it through? Because what he actually has done was just kind of made the inroads, but really not solidified the deal, if that's a good way of putting it. Oh boy, I know what you're saying. You know what? When Tom Horn, when he comes on the program on Thursday, I'm sure he'll have some answers about that, because you bring up some good points.
It seemed to me that kind of a similar changing of the guard, same kind of point of continuity that we're seeing politically in the U.S. with Bush dad, Clinton, GW, Obama,
right.
Just seeing that continuity, and that's what I was seeing, was that this is just a move of continuity. And although it's stunning that we have a pope who's leaving but not dying, in his departure. It just seemed to me that this was part of the continuity action, and wondering if to use Tom Horn's terminology, Petrus Romanus is the guy who really can seal the deal. He can really seal it. He's the man with the power. He's got the spiritual power to pull that one off. Whereas maybe Benedict, this is as far as he could take it. And who knows why, whether it's a matter of conscience or, intelligent management on his part, or whether he's being forced out, or as some have suggested, he's being pushed because of what was the word that we used, dalliance, or dirt, or who knows? But it just seemed to me that it was an action of some continuity, and the fact that it was almost as though Ahmadinejad, I felt like he was signaling something when I read his statement about how he was looking forward to praying in Jerusalem, as though he knew it was going to be coming soon.
When you think about it, and when I hear it said, as you've said it, and folks, when you listen to it, doesn't that give you not only cause to pause, but that's a rather chilling and ominous kind of that's just chilling and ominous on such a grand scale. It's hard to really absorb. Wow. You could very well be right. They're correct in what you're saying.
Well, if we're talking about spiritual power, if we're talking about, certain places, certain hierarchies in the spiritual realm, if we're talking about works of darkness, then we're talking about strategic positioning that goes well beyond nations and national agendas, or even international agenda. I mean, now we've got cosmic eternal agenda, and so if you look at it from that perspective of the timelessness of this plan and this agenda, I think that it makes more sense, particularly the surreal sense of Ahmadinejad being connected to an announcement and approval for the Pope to be seated at King David's tomb. I mean, that's like, whoa, that's a left turn. But not if you're looking at, the kingdom of darkness and the raw, vicious, perverse thirst for power, pure evil power that exists within the elites that really are Luciferian. I mean, let's just take the gloves off and say what it is. They're satanic worshiping, Luciferian, perverse perpetrators who are murdering children using sex magic. I mean, they're perverse, and so of course when you see this unmasked, then these types of strange alliances are no longer surprising. So I may have really been, I may have been waking up a very strange dream, but I've been awake for a long time. I think just not geopolitically until more recently. Spiritually, I've been awake for decades, but in terms of the times and geopolitical issues now, I think I'm seeing the whole picture, and I thank God for that. I've gone back to the basics of the faith. I've gone back to running back to Jesus Christ, running back to the Word. Really setting aside, eschewing the lukewarmness and the passivity and the tolerance for evil in the church. So I'm in a really place of questioning my own faith and crying out to God, to keep me, in close account, to guard my heart for me. And so I say this humbly with having been awake, brothers, for some time spiritually, but these are very interesting times, very, very interesting times, and I think that it just surprised me that my first response I felt like was kind of surprising that the connection so quickly would be. I guess the easy way to say this, the easy way, is to say I've experienced a profound shift in my own viewpoint and my own awareness that I would see Ahmadinejad's statement as a connection in some kind of global work, global continuity, similar to the Clinton, Obama continuity we've talked about. That's a shift for me to suddenly go, wow, that's Ahmadinejad. I think that may be connected to what just happened with the Pope. Whoa.
Wow. Now, thank you. And Joe, I want to say that this caller is Exhibit A of we've got the best, the most educated audience. I've plugged in audience in all of talk radio. I want to thank you very much for your insight, because you've given us a lot to consider, a lot to think about. Thank you for that, and what a great first call. My goodness.
Hey, thanks for your work, y'all, because truly, I have been in school, and your report and your radio, the archives have meant the world to my husband and I. We've been in school. God has had us in school for the past year and a half, and particularly in the past 4 to 5 months with so many of the broadcasts that we've enjoyed from you and your ministry and the vanguard that you're leading, because we get it. I mean, you guys are out there on the front line. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, God bless you, and thank you so much for your call. Wow, Joe, it means a lot to us, Joe. I mean, really, when you look at this, she said some things in there that really kind of struck home, and I'm just going to leave that alone, because I don't think I can really. There's no need to put an extra period after her sentence or an exclamation point after her comments. She did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you for your call. You have a good night.
Yes.
Thanks. You too.
All right. We are going to move on here. We're going to go to Pierre. Thanks for holding, Pierre. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. Very well. What do you make of this?
I woke up this morning.
What do you make of the Vatican thing?
I woke up this morning to it. I had to get up early this morning to deal with my child, my daughter. She was coming over. And I just went on drugs like I normally do, and there it was right before my face. And you want to talk about like getting hit with a center block and having a reality check and getting sober all at once. It blew my mind, because 5 years ago I did a report on this. I did a briefing, and that briefing is still classified to this day. And I gave out several rather interesting scenarios to how things can play out in terms of the Holy See, and looks like one of them is coming to pass. And it was the least expected one, actually. I thought he would go in violence. I didn't expect him to actually stand down, which I will now have to agree with the caller prior to me, saying that he did accomplish his mission. He accomplished his task. Add to the fact that, Benedict is old. He's an old man, and he knows his limitations, and he's stepping down. So that in and of itself is profound, considering that a pope has not stepped down in almost, I think,
598 years.
Yeah, about a millennia.
No, 600 years.
And then the prophecies of Saint Malachi rings true to form so far. I mean, he wrote that back in 1139 A.D., and that was a eye-opening experience for him, I'm sure, as it is for us now in the present. Petrus Romanus is coming. There's no denying that. No denying it. And it's not really big, news to me, but it's news in terms of reality check, in your face kind of thing. And
it hit me like a sobering 2x4 this morning.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, things don't affect me. I'm glad, no, they do, but not
as profound
this. This one's heavy. I mean, I actually left my office, and went to my house and talked to my wife. I said, "Look, you've got to understand the significance of what we're seeing," and that's one of the few times I've ever done that. So go on.
There are some people I was friends within the chat room, and there's some people I know outside that I had talked about such things of signs as to what to look for, and one of the things to look for was the issue of the Vatican, and it's just Catholicism this, Catholicism that. I'm going to set the record straight with Catholicism so everyone knows from my perspective. Again, this is just my perspective. For 19 years, I was a Roman Catholic, and I was pretty proud of it. I was an altar boy, no molestations, no none of that. Funny how people made jokes about that, but I never experienced anything like that because the priests and the monsignors that I served under and the nuns were nothing but benevolent people. But at 19, when I was in the Marine Corps, I gave up following Catholicism for the simple reason that I violated one of the 10 Commandments, and I violated it in a way that it was so profoundly, it made me feel so disgusting and so just horrible, coupled with the fact that I hadn't been attending masses for a number of years, caused me to do self-excommunication. So I removed myself from the faith. And I floated around for a good number of years through things. I even went to the born-again Christian churches, and those were pretty good, but it just didn't work for me. And it wasn't until sometime after my divorce that things have really hit home that it's time to get my act straight and get right with things. And my own church is within my heart and within the Bible that I hold that was given to me as a gift from my uncle. Knowing what I know of Catholicism, yeah, they have high rituals. Yes, they celebrate things that are right along neo-paganism. And yes, they have a lot of corruption that's right within the ranks, within the pillars. They're not as solid as they once were. The foundations of the Roman Catholic Church, as far as I'm concerned, has all but virtually disintegrated. Petrus Romanus will finish the rest of the job on this. Now, why do I say this? It's very simple. People think that he's just going to be the last pope and that he's going to continue to lead the flock and to the bitter end. Well, I don't subscribe to that interpretation. In fact, what I subscribe to is that this man will be the one to pave the way for the Antichrist. He is literally the anti-pope. That's who he's going to be. And his whole job is to guide in and rein in the last remnants of the true faithful within the Roman Catholic Church. And I'm not talking just Rome. I'm talking Roman Catholic Church around the world. The last of the faithful that really do believe in God, that have given themselves over to God, that have given themselves over to Christ. And he will tell them all kinds of things that they need to hear. He will guide them as the seven hills burn. It will be like watching the fall of the Roman Empire happen all over again, but in modern times, but in a much more grisly manner. You don't have to worry about the Visigoths coming over the hill and destroying Rome from within. It's already been compromised by forces of Lucifer. That much has been confirmed. There are priests and cardinals and bishops who have spoken on matters of confidentiality and anonymity that have admitted that there have been satanic rituals that have been going on within the ranks, and that there are cardinals and bishops that do worship Satan, Lucifer. That in and of itself explains to you just how horrible things are within the hierarchy of that church, within that structure, that pseudo-religious government that they are, because they are technically a independent entity, national entity within another country. Interesting how that one works too. Much like how it works over at 44th East Street, New York, the UN. I digress. But I think people need to wake up and realize what is going on here. I cannot stress this enough, that if there could have been such a thing as a global warning, an edict of very bad things that are to come, this is probably the most significant sign of it, because this goes directly into scriptures, not just prophecies from people who've had visions from God, which I'm going to touch on just a little bit so people understand where I'm coming from with this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to touch on this now, Doug and Joe, and I hope you guys agree with me on this. If you don't, I understand and I respect that. And for those in the chat room and those that are out there that don't agree with me, this is America, and for those that are listening around the world, it's the free world. We have a right to disagree. My thought is this: the Lord speaks to everyone His way, His time, not when we want it, not when we perceive it. Let's get that point clear. Point two, when He speaks to people and people are told to preach the word or to say such things and to reveal such things, for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that it's under infernal/satanic influence. And just because it hasn't been written within the scriptures doesn't mean that he didn't speak to you about it. But I'm sure it's written somewhere in the book, and I'm not a theologian, so I can't say that for sure. But I have to believe that the Lord has mentioned that he will talk to people. You ask of him, he will come to you. Correct me if I'm wrong here. And if that is the case, who's to say that he won't give prophetic visions of things? So just because someone says something and it's not in Scripture doesn't make it blasphemous. I want to get that point clear. This isn't the Salem witch hunts here, folks. This isn't. We don't have time for that. We have to have time enough to have an open mind to listen to what's going on, pray for discernment on the matter. When you pray for discernment on the matter, then you're going to get your answer. And then you can judge from there. But give a person the benefit of doubt regardless of where they come from, whether it's Catholicism or being a Jehovah's Witness or whatever. Just give a person the benefit of the doubt because Christ did. I don't know how many times he's done it. Even the prophets of the Old Testament did, but back then the Old Testament was pretty harsh. You know, the Word of God is the Word of God, and there you go. But that's what I wanted to get out of the way on that little tangent there. But as back to Petrus Romanus and how this affects the world, I want you all to look at several things that are going on simultaneous to what has just now happened with prior to Benedict stepping down under his own free will and recognizance. I want to state that in quotes as they kind of put it. China and Japan are ready for war. Actually, China's really gearing up for war. They're ready. They're mobilized. They're getting their forces sent, ready to do what needs to be done. At the same time, you have U.S. military forces and NATO occupying Africa. And that's going to lead to a very interesting deal if what I heard was correct 2 years from now. We're going to see where that all leads to, which also leads to Obama's allowing the Egyptian government, which is ran by the radical Muslim Brotherhood, to have those F-16 Falcons and those 200 M1 Abrams tanks, main battle tanks. This also leads into the fact that the collapse of the contrived economic collapse that's going to happen here in America and the world. It's all happening, and the dominoes are falling. We no longer have to wait, folks. You don't have to wait. It's happening. And like I told you, it was going to happen asymmetrically. I told you it was going to be happening on different levels. And sure enough, here it is. Now we have the biggest of red flags here. And if your faith isn't straight, you need to get it straight now. And if no one said Steve Quell when he says the time is short, and like how it's written in the Bible, the Lord says, or Christ said that no one will know, when the time is of when he's coming. Just because we learned that Petrus Romanus is around the corner doesn't mean that Christ is coming ASAP. People, get inside your heads and understand what I'm saying. And I'm going to offend a lot of you by saying this. He's not coming instantly. He's not.
Get inside the Bible, not inside your head. But you're right, Pierre. We don't know how these things can play out. It could be any time, really. And one thing I want to add, I know what you meant when you said, get in your head. But I was talking with somebody this weekend, and we were talking about, what direction are each individual heading in versus where should they head in. And we're going to find ourselves in situations that we might be in need, we might be vulnerable, we might be victims if and when this whole thing crashes. And the person I was talking with, we were talking about our will versus God's will, and which one we need to, focus on. And obviously the answer to that is God's will. And my response was, anytime I've listened to myself or done my will, it's gotten me into trouble. So we need to learn to rely on the Lord and only Him when dealing with discernment, when dealing with what people say, when dealing with Scripture, when dealing with earthly events and things that are happening in the news.
Exactly. And I totally agree with you on it. I really, really, really do. And discernment is when I told everyone beforehand, at numerous times I've called in that, get yourself spiritually right and get discernment. Now more than ever, discernment is going to play key, because if I'm right, and every instinct is telling me that I am, Petrus Romanus will not be what everyone thinks he's going to be when all these miracles and stuff happens. This is where you really, really, really have to have your eyes open, because the grandest of deceptions is literally just around the corner. And we will be seeing things that defy logic, science, reason. We're going to be seeing things that run completely in concert with the Bible in terms of miracles and healings and such, but it does not make this individual a representative of Jesus Christ. It does not make the person Jesus Christ, and that is something that you all must understand. Add to the fact that if what I heard is true here too, I read something, maybe you guys read this article, I forgot the source, but apparently next month on the 23rd, as Obamacare is kicking in, don't you find it rather interesting that they're talking about now having the institution of the biometric chips with all your information on it, that they will have to be put in you, and if you don't have it, you can't buy your goods or any of that. That's right out of scriptures, And you're talking about instituting this mandatorily, Joe and Doug and everyone that's listening, the 23rd of March, 2013. Okay.
Yeah, that's a date that's been thrown around, and we're going to have to wait and see what comes about between now and then. I'm definitely worried about that when we get there.
I wouldn't chisel that in stone. Okay, that date in stone.
But we know the technology is here, and we know it's coming, and we know they're going to make an effort to implement it globally, and they will be successful according to the Bible. Pierre, I want to thank you for your call. We got to move on. We only got a few minutes left. God bless you. Take care. All right, that was Pierre, very informative gentleman who calls us so frequently with excellent advice. We're going to move on. Area code 918. Thanks for holding.
Thanks for your patience.
You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug. Hey, Joe. How are you?
Very well. What's on your mind tonight?
It's Steve in Oklahoma. I was just listening to your all show tonight. Great show going on, and some of the coincidences that is going on with the Pope and everything. So I thought I'd add my 2 cents too, and everything in on it. You obviously have, the Pope resigning the 28th, and then the enclave will probably start in March. You also have our president going over there starting March 20th. Heading over to Israel, which actually is about 5 or 6 days before Passover. So that's a very significant thing, him going over during that time, too, to Israel. So you have, the Pope, resigning, the enclave being announced, and then Obama going over there. But I don't know if you all heard about the coincidences with the Super Bowl. There was a lot of people out there thinking there'd be some type of false flag with the Super Bowl. Were you all aware of that? Hello? Hello?
Yeah. The coincidence of the Super Bowl were numerous, actually. You're talking about, it was Super Bowl 47. Let me just see here. I've got some notes that I took about the Super Bowl, actually, that people might be interested in. The lights were off for 13 minutes, 22 seconds during the second quarter. It was 47. Super Bowl 47 was actually 47, there were 47 days from the Aurora shooting to the Sandy Hook shooting, 47 days from the Sandy Hook shooting to the Super Bowl 47. And believe it or not, there are 47 days from the Super Bowl to March 22nd, 2013. And that's actually 2 days after the vernal equinox, but the March 22nd date has some significance as well. But yeah, coincidences? I think so.
Yeah, it may be. Also, you have to look at the president too when he took the Nobel Peace Prize, October 9th, 2009. Well, if you add that with 1,260 days, that adds up to March 22nd, 2013. And, if you just did a Google search of 1,260 days in Bible scripture, you would see it everywhere, talking about scripture with that. So it's really kind of crazy. I don't know. Have you all run across that yet?
The 1262, March 22nd, yes. That was one on the list of about 17 coincidences, but very interesting, yes.
Yep. Well, I was just wondering if you all covered that and stuff. It's going to be interesting with what happens with the Pope here, with him resigning here and what the stage is set. The only thing I like to say is I give everyone hope. Our hope is in Christ, and I'm glad you all are reaching out with everyone, letting them know to get a hold of Jesus, because I come from the church part that we're not appointed to wrath, and we're soon to see our Lord and Savior. So I just want to reach out to you all and thank you for all you're doing and you waking up people and everything. You're doing a great ministry and a great job with everyone.
Well, thanks. It's it's a pleasure to talk with you from Oklahoma, and I want to say thanks very much. And you know what? Thank you so much for keeping your eye on the coincidences, because sometimes they mean things.
Oh, yeah.
And, all right. Well, God bless you, my friend.
God bless you.
What's that?
God bless
you. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, no. God bless you all.
Oh, thanks much. You have a good night.
All right.
Wow, what a great, like I said, I
wanted to click on the draw on the switchboard there.
That's all right. I was talking over him, and there's that delay there.
Let's move on here. We got area code 205. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Very well.
Hey, I just wanted to bring to your attention an article at WorldNet Daily that was written yesterday. The article is entitled, "Is Allah the Antichrist?" The subtitle says, "Video suggests that John saw Arabic writing in the Revelation visions." I highly recommend this article to you. It's written by Michael Carl, and he is quoting a guy who I believe to be a good, fine Christian fellow, a guy who is a converted PLO terrorist or operative. If I can pronounce his name correctly, you may have heard of it. His name is Walid Shoebat. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I've been on the radio with Walid and his son Ted several times. Yes.
Yeah. Well, go read that article and watch the video there. And this is something that he has brought up, and Dr. Chuck Missler has brought out, the fact that John, when he wrote the Book of Revelation, said in about the second verse he wrote down what he saw. He certainly did not understand everything that he saw in the Book of Revelation. And when he wrote down that part of the Scripture that we've always interpreted the past as being 666, Walid Shoebat is saying, there is the possibility, he's not being dogmatic about it, I don't think, but there's the possibility that maybe those really aren't Greek letters, they can be Arabic letters. And here's something interesting. As Dr. Missler says, all languages on earth read toward Jerusalem. Greek reads from left to right, but Arabic reads from right to left. And when they look at the oldest fragments of Scripture that we have, and you look at those symbols there, it could well be Arabic. And I think I'm correct in saying that it could be interpreted as being in the name of Allah. The interesting thing is that Walid Shoebat says every time you see an Arab terrorist, guess what he has? A real true dyed-in-the-wool terrorist? He has on a headband or an armband, and he has writing on it. And what does the writing say? It says, "In the name of Allah."
Okay.
Anyway, so it's quite interesting. I'm not being dogmatic about it, but it's something just to think about.
No.
That the Antichrist probably is going to be, someone that is a Muslim.
Well, I've wondered about that. I'm not sure at this point. I would I'm not coming from any place of knowledge on this. This is just my gut feeling. I would be more inclined to believe that the Antichrist would be more of a Anglo-Saxon type of an individual, and there are other reasons. I've got reasons for that, but nothing that I could really, make a convincing argument. So, it's whoever this Antichrist is going to be. obviously is going to be a very bad. Well, how about an understatement? A bad person or a bad entity, or
right.
you know.
Sure.
So, wow, you know, it's interesting to watch the pieces of the puzzle seem to come together at this time, and man, I don't know.
Okay, well, just something to think about. Like I said, I'm not trying to be dogmatic about it.
No, I understand that. Well, let me throw something at you, though. I really believe, though, the Antichrist, the actual persona of the Antichrist, is going to be someone that you would least expect. That's kind of my gut feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing that out there just to throw it out there. But that's just me. Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
All right, man.
Thanks for the call. We're only a few minutes away from the show. There's a 4.9 earthquake in North Korea. It's said to be a North Korean nuclear missile test.
Yeah, we have to watch what North Korea is doing. I think it's important, and like Pierre said, too, about China, Japan. Look, things are so hot everywhere.
I got this here. If we can cover this real quick. The war in Mali and AFRICOM agenda target China. Mali, at first glance, seems a most unlikely place for NATO powers led by a neo-colonialist French government, a socialist president, Francis Hollandale, backed by Obama, to launch what is being called by some a new 30 years of war against terrorism. Mali, with a population of 12 million and a landmass 3.5 times the size of Germany, is a landlocked, largely Saharan desert country at the center of West Africa, bordered by Algeria to its north, Matrina to its west, Senegal, and Geneva, Ivory Coast, and so many more countries. It goes on to say, people I know who have spent time there before, the recent U.S.-led efforts to destabilization called it one of the most beautiful places on the earth. Its people are some of the 90% Muslims of varying persuasions. It has a rural subsistence, agriculture, and adult illiteracy of nearly 50%, yet the country is suddenly the center of a new global war on terror.
Yeah,
AFRICOM.
We're going to watch this, AFRICOM in general, Joe. But
we're being told reportedly in recent months that something supposedly calling itself Al-Qaeda, the organization officially charged by the U.S. government is responsible for the 9/11 attacks, has regrouped in North Africa.
Right.
According to the popular media account and the statements of various NATO member country government officials, the group, the original group of the late Osama bin Laden, holding up were supposedly believed somewhere in the caves of Tora Bora in Afghanistan, and has apparently adopted a modern business model, and it's handling out Al-Qaeda officials' franchises in style, something like McDonald's of terrorism, from Al-Qaeda in Iraq to Libya, Islamic fighting groups, and now Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. But
that's AQIM, by the way.
AFRICOM were there for the resources and the ability to take those away from China, and it has nothing to do with terrorism, and it is another undeclared war, and keep your eye on this because it is important.
Just so people understand what AFRICOM is, it's the United States African Command. AFRICOM is short for the United States Africa Command. It's headquartered in Germany, actually. It's responsible for...
It's 1/4 of the global government system.
Yeah, and that's the important part. It's 1/4 of the global governance system. It's responsible for military operations with 53 African nations. And I got to tell you this, it started, I think, in 2000. The mission statement, according to the White House, I'm not sure if it's a mission statement, according to the White House, AFRICOM will strengthen our security cooperation with Africa and create new opportunities to bolster the capabilities of our partners in Africa. Just want to tell you that.
Folks, it's been a great show. Thanks to all the callers and listeners for calling and tuning in. We'll be here tomorrow, one at a time. Don't forget Thursday night with Tom Horn, talking about the new Pope incoming. And I hope everybody takes some time and pray and read their Bibles.
Look, folks, just time is short. Please, please hit your knees tonight. If you're not physically able to hit your knees, then just pray. Fold your hands, and I say fold your hands, I mean in a submission, in repentance,
and for understanding.
Right.
God bless each and every one of you. We see you tomorrow. Have a good night.